As your fire and rescue service, we are proud to say that we've been rated good at what we do in protecting and serving our communities. We are good at keeping people safe and secure, being efficient in how we do this, and at looking after our people. Nottinghamshire Fire and Rescue Service. When you need us, we are here for you. Nottinghamshire is a great place to live, work, or visit. As your fire and rescue service, we are proud to say that we've been rated good at what we do in protecting and serving our communities. We are good at keeping people safe and secure, being efficient in how we do this, and at looking after our people. Nottinghamshire Fire and Rescue Service. When you need us, we are here for you. Nottinghamshire is a great place to live, work, or visit. As your fire and rescue service, we are proud to say that we've been rated good at what we do in protecting and serving our communities. We are good at keeping people safe and secure, being efficient in how we do this, and at looking after our people. Nottinghamshire Fire and Rescue Service. When you need us, we are here for you. Nottinghamshire is a great place to live, work, or visit. As your fire and rescue service, we are proud to say that we've been rated good at what we do in protecting and serving our communities. We are good at keeping people safe and secure, being efficient in how we do this, and at looking after our people. Nottinghamshire Fire and Rescue Service. When you need us, we are here for you.
There's a remembrance event.
We've got a short agenda, colleagues. It would be fantastic if we could get through this before, well, ideally before 11:15 if we can, with a fair wind. Obviously, it's Armistice Day, so
I was working on 10:30.
Well, I'm in your hands, Mike. So I'm happy to go for 10:30 if colleagues. I'm in your hands as a committee. Okay. Everybody okay? You let us know when you. Okay, good morning everybody. Welcome to Nottinghamshire and City of Nottingham Fire and Rescue Authority Policy and Strategy Committee on Friday the 11th of November 2022. Just gone 10 o'clock, starting the meeting, and I'll move on to the formal agenda. Any apologies for absence, Kath?
Sure, we have apologies from Jason Strozny, who Tom Hollis is substituting, and Councillor Sybil Fielding.
Thank you.
Mark, Jason just apologised for not being here. He's laying a wreath today, obviously, with the Armistice remembrance.
Welcome, Tom.
Thank you.
Welcome. Any declarations of interest by members or officers? Seeing any indications? Item 3 then is the minutes of the meeting held on the 24th of June. Any comments or questions people want to raise in relation to the minutes? Are people happy that they're an accurate record? People happy to approve them?
Yep.
Yes.
Thank you very much, colleagues. Item 4 then is Local Firefighter Pension Annual Report 2021-22, which is a report of the Chief Officer, but I think it's going to be introduced by Treasurer and Head of Finance, Beth Smithers.
Thank you. So this report is an annual report from to run through activity of the pension board, and also as myself as delegated scheme manager for the firefighters pension scheme. And there's been an awful lot going on this year. We thought when McLeod hit that it was enough, but there's lots more going on. So I'd like to just spend a little while running through the sort of big areas of workload, because you'll be hearing things about them, and just to make sure you understand the work that's involved and the activities that we're involved in. So I was going to skip the early part of the report and move to sort of 2.11 onwards. So you'll all be fairly familiar with McLeod. We're now policy and strategy approved in April to continue paying those members, or allowing members to retire under the new scheme, under the McLeod, to take accounts of McLeod, and also to retrospectively put people who had retired into a position along with the remedy. Obviously, the legislation isn't due to go through in Parliament until next year in October 23, and that does leave the authority at some risk because we're applying what we think the legislation will be in advance of that. But given that it's the court case that we had against the authority last year, it was decided to progress with those, and there will be some adjustments on those cases once the final legislation is through. So we've almost completed all their running back through the older cases from people that have already retired, where we're able to do so. There are some circumstances where we're not able to apply the remedy, for example, in a divorce situation perhaps, where the Memorandum of Understanding doesn't cover that, and it does state in the Memorandum of Understanding that we'll wait for the legislation to come through. So I think things are progressing fairly well on McLeod at the moment. So moving on to Matthews and O'Brien. So this case, originally back in 2014, on-call staff were originally, all on-call staff were not allowed to join the pension fund. And in 2014, a case was brought saying that it was discriminatory for part-time workers not to be able to join. So legislation went through saying that we had to backdate membership back to 2000. Now, following a further court case, that's now been extended back to when on-call firefighters originally started their employment. This has given us quite a challenge, because some of the cases go back to the 1970s that other fire authorities have identified. We don't keep all the data. A lot of that data was kept on paper-based systems, and deleted due to data protection issues, and also our payroll and pension provision has changed during that time. It used to be provided by the county council from when the fire service used to be form part of the county council before it went to an independent fire authority. So there's an awful lot of work to do in this area to try and get as much data as we can. We have got the data collection exercise that our previous administrators collected for us on when we had the first exercise that took us back to 2000, and we're using that, but there's still an awful lot of work to go on that to try and identify cases. And the LGA have made a form available to submit to us so that if people think that they're entitled, they can let us know, because obviously our data is incomplete. So we're using our links with the FBU as well to try and allow previous members to come forward, so we can at least collate a bank of people that we know that might be affected when the legislation comes through. Unfortunately for us, the legislation on that will also go to October 23 through Parliament, and then we have a further 18 months to implement both MacLeod and the Matthews and O'Brien cases. So we have two major pieces of work which require a lot of resources from both HR and the payroll team. And at the moment we have about half a payroll post and about 3/4 of a HR post that we can allocate to this work. So we are trying to recruit. We do have permission to recruit a new post. It was included in the budget for this year, but unfortunately when we put the advert out, we didn't get any applicants at all, because there are very few people available and around that have the experience and the understanding of the firefighters pension scheme, which is incredibly complex compared to other schemes. So we're now trying to rearrange that and try to see if we can get some more data analysts, because obviously with MacLeod it is more about the data and working at different ways of providing the knowledge at the top level. And as part of that, we're looking at reinvigorating the joint pension board across the three fire authorities, Leicestershire, Derbyshire and Nottinghamshire, which you may, if for those of you that were here at the time, we did apply to the Secretary of State to progress that some years ago, about a couple of years ago, 2019 it was, before MacLeod. But because we had a change in the administrators, the Secretary of State requested that we resubmitted it when we were settled with new administrators. So we've started discussions with Leicestershire and Derbyshire, and the Pension Board are keen to progress that. And also with West Yorkshire, they're willing to enter into some negotiations to assist us to do that. So that's something that we're looking at to try and improve the knowledge at a high level and reduce the risk of the knowledge gap with us not being able to recruit into that post that we had. So the final area I wanted to look at was the scheme valuations and the cost cap mechanism. So back in 2012, the valuation, there were a significant shortfall in the funding of the scheme, and the authority incurred a significant increase in employer contributions of about £2.5 million. So at the time we got a one-off pension grant of about 2.3 million, but that did leave us significantly short, and that's been cash capped since then. So we're probably funding near £500,000 of that gap in funding. The 2016 valuation took place, but it was suspended. Any implications of that were suspended pending the results of MacLeod. So there's now a judicial review that the FBU have been successful in. They're taking it in January to court about whether the MacLeod cost should be included in that cost cap mechanism, which would have led to, and the original valuation was giving firefighters additional benefits because it breached the lower cap. but if you include the McLeod costs, it increases the higher cap. So there's a debate going on there, and we're expecting to hear about that after Christmas, the decisions around that. That will also have implications for employer contributions. So this valuation is now at least 4 years out of date already. We've had the 2020 valuation, we've submitted figures, and we'll have the implications of that coming through as well in the next year or so. So there's, with regards to the finances of the fire authority, there's quite a significant risk there that the employer costs will increase significantly as they did in previous valuations, and it's whether the government funding, the new burdens funding, will cover the cost of that. So it's all good news, I think. So finally, one thing there is another, where I'm asking approval to amend our abatement policy for firefighters' pension scheme. So the general principle of the abatement is that under the two older schemes, 1992 and 2006 schemes, if an employer retires and then comes back to work for the service, the amount that they earn between the pension and the amount that they're paid in their new role should not exceed the amount that they earned when they retired from the service. And if they do earn over that level, then their pension should be reduced to the level that they would have got when the earnings that they would have received when they left the service. We do have a discretion to pay that amount, to continue to allow them to receive that pension, but then the authority would have to pay the difference into the pension fund. So because of the cost element, and it can work out to be quite substantial, the Fire Authority approved a policy that we would choose that we would always abate someone's pension if they came back. The advice now from the LGA is that we should not have a blanket approval, and we should be considering each issue or each person on its own merit. And given that where we are with staffing, it is feasible that maybe we aren't able to fill some roles without pulling people back from retirement, or maybe the cost of employing somebody on a contract basis would exceed the amount of paying the abatement. So it is feasible that in some circumstances it may be something that the authority wishes to do. So I'm requesting approval to change the abatement policy to allow discretion around it to be considered in exceptional circumstances where there's a clear benefit to the service in doing so. So that's that report. If anybody's got any questions.
Thank you, Becky. So our recommendations are to take note of the activity of the pension board and pension scheme manager list, along with, I think I should say, the update on current pension issues. That needs to be amended with those recommendations, a typo. And secondly, to approve a change in the abatement policy to allow discretion around abatement to be considered in exceptional circumstances where there is a clear benefit to the service in doing so. All of it makes eminent sense to me, Becky, just before I bring other colleagues in if they want to. That the only question I think in my mind is, what is exceptional circumstance where there is a clear benefit to the service? Because clearly that's being left to you as the scheme manager. And I think I, as an elected member in this committee, would want to be satisfied. What is the framework around that? Because an exceptional circumstance where there is a clear benefit to the service could mean one thing to one person and one thing to another. And I think it leaves you, as the scheme manager, in quite a vulnerable position if there isn't a clear framework and a set of guidance for how that decision is going to be made. Now, I'm not for one second saying this committee would want to approve every single one of those decisions, because I think that's the whole point of the scheme manager is to allow that person some discretion. But I just think you perhaps need to set out some sort of framework, yourself and Craig, to us as elected members of the Policy and Strategy Committee. This is where it's going to be reported through in an annual report, just so we've got some idea about the basis on which those decisions are being made. Because my view about benefits to the service might be very different than your view.
And I did consider that when we were thinking about what to put as a recommendation, and the only problem is that you don't know until you have a circumstance in front of you what that's going to be and what the benefit is going to be. So I didn't want to be too prescriptive and saying in this instance we will and in this instance we won't, because then you've almost got you've already almost got a blanket policy again. In these circumstances it will and in these it won't. But I would foresee it would be in my it would be a financial decision, maybe when the costs of finding resources from elsewhere would exceed the cost of paying the amount into the pension fund, or if we were simply not able to undertake a statutory function unless that person came back. So that's the sort of level that I was thinking of in those exceptions. That's why I've used the word exceptional, because it wouldn't be something that I would want to do because we felt it was a good idea. It is because we are stuck up a corner really, and we need to use this to get out. So I can perhaps add that into the.
I mean, I think it's helpful. You've set out on the public record that that those are the things that will be taken into consideration. The reason I asked the question is these are serious decisions about people's quality of life, and the authority will have to justify the decisions it's made. And I don't want you as an individual person to be left in a vulnerable position where there's a view that, well, yes, decisions are being made on the merit, which I think makes eminent sense and under exceptional circumstances, but what's the framework, what's the rationale around the basis on which those decisions are going to be made? I think as long as there is, once the decision is made and it's reported back through to here, a clear rationale that we can justify, then fair enough. But it's taxpayers' money, isn't it? It's public money, and so that's the reason I'm asking the question. I think your explanation certainly gives me some reassurance about how those decisions are going to be made, Becky. And that that you've given thought, to that. Craig, did you want to say?
No, just to reiterate the point about there's obviously the financial imperative, but in the labour market we currently have, we need to make sure that we've got as many tools to both. So if we're unable to deliver some things, we know we've got really small teams, that if we lose some of the skills in that and you can't get it from the labour market, well, we're not going to be delivering things on behalf of the public. So for me, it is about public safety and it is the financial risk to the authority. But no, we'll take those on board and have a discussion around that, Michael.
Yeah, and we do report all discretions back through to pension board. And the other suggestion that I could make is that for local government pension scheme, if we have any discretions involving cost, they do go through, we have a discretions panel. So that would be another option, which is myself, one of the POs, and someone from HR. So we could probably take that advice, and I would, before I made any decision, I certainly wouldn't be sitting on my own making these decisions. I would take advice from HR and.
And it does actually present some foreseeable challenges down the road. Well, you let that person have it, but you're not letting me have it.
And that's one of the things we consider if it sets a precedent for decisions in the future.
Okay. Any other colleagues want to ask questions or make any comments?
You've just raised the issue about precedent, and the LGA is guidance. It's not legislation, is it?
No.
So we could leave ourselves open in the future if we approve this. So it's just the point I wanted to make, because I've come across it in other spheres where it's become an issue, and we've had members of staff come back and say, well, you gave it to her, and I didn't get it. Why didn't I get it? And you end up in an industrial tribunal and wasting people's time.
There is something about the whole pension thing, and it's certainly raising its head at the moment, but usually about senior officer pay and re-engagement and those kind of things that's being raised. And I think there's a reality in the sector that people are leaving the service unless there are still people wanting to join the fire sector, but it is in far less numbers than used to be. So I think this is just kind of one tool, and I think we've got that in his mind, Councillor, about why somebody kicks off and has a bit of a grievance about this, how we're going to deal with that, how we're going to justify it. And I think we just need a discussion around how robust the governance and the reporting is going to be, and I think that's your point, Chair.
Okay. I think it'd probably be helpful, even if it's just verbally, if there's a report back to the next Policy and Strategy Committee on that discussion. I see no reason why we can't approve the recommendations today, but I think it'd be helpful if once further discussions have taken place, whatever form they take, and you've given some suggestions today, Becky, about how the decision might be made and what the governance might look like, I think it'd be helpful if there was a report back at the next Policy and Strategy Committee, just so we can close that off with members so they know where that's ended up.
Because it has been used in other sectors of the public sector for people to boost their salaries by retiring and then immediately going back after 2 weeks
Yeah.
on their full salary.
Yeah.
So they're not being paid 100,000 a year, they're being paid 150,000 a year.
Yeah.
That's at higher level in the NHS, and I've seen it happen.
Tom?
Can I ask how common it is within our service, particularly in Nottinghamshire, Nottingham City, how people retire and then we employ them again? Because obviously we're talking about we're not talking about retirees, we're talking about people that used to work in the fire service and then return back to a
Yeah.
similar role, same role,
It's quite common.
common.
Yeah, so if I pick up some niche areas, so where would it be exceptional, whereas limited skills where it takes a long time to train somebody, fire protection. So people inspecting buildings, it's been done there. You probably wouldn't see it necessarily saying whole-time firefighter, and that's because actually there's usually, even now, there's still people who are wanting to do it. New people coming in, and there is an argument around the re-engagement thing about people who leave aren't then paying into the pension scheme. So the actual pot nationally is rather than getting new people in who are going to be paying into the pension scheme, but certainly across some roles it is fairly common, across the fire sector, not just in Nottingham but across the fire sector.
We have had some instances as well during COVID where full-time firefighters have continued or have come back on an on-call basis after they've retired, and then they've done. Normally, the amount that they would earn on an on-call isn't a huge amount, and it doesn't cause us a problem. But during COVID, when they were doing a lot of additional work, delivering parcels, we had some firefighters hit by that, and they were doing a good service to the community. But we do always warn people when they come back, and if we know they're coming back into a role, they are informed of the risk of abatement. So they all should be going into those roles knowing that this will happen if they do that.
And it's things like promotion when they're on the on-call as well.
Yeah.
They're beginning to earn more than the salary that they left, and it's not something that they've kind of factored in.
Yeah.
From a fire service perspective, it's, you need people to be incident commanders, officers in charge of appliances, and a lot of those have been people who've been in the whole time.
Okay. I'm going to move the recommendations. I think you've taken note of the point about reporting back to us at the next meeting about the mechanics of how that works and the rationale for, or the framework, the rationale for the decisions made based on recommendations. I'll move the recommendations. So we have a second. Seconded by Councillor Wheeler. Is wanted to agree with recommendations? Yeah. Agreed.
Okay.
Thank you, colleagues. Okay, item 5 then is exclusion of the public. So to consider excluding the public from the meeting during the consideration of the remaining item in accordance with section, thanks Mark, in accordance with section 100A of the Local Government Act 1972 under Schedule 12A Part 1, on the basis that, having regard to all the circumstances, the public interest in maintaining an exemption outweighs the public interest in disclosing the information. So I'll move that recommendation. People happy to agree?
Yeah.